What is good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode brought to you by the League FFB. Today, we're here for a pre-recorded version. You guys are going to be watching it as a premiere, so you guys can talk about all of these things in the chat today because we have a very fun episode of Let's Talk Dynasty. We're doing Show Me the Receipts. You guys have seen it before. You guys seem to like that episode when we did it. Really what we do is you guys have a favorite or maybe a unfavorite fantasy football Twitter account. They like to show the receipts of some of your favorite fantasy football analysts. Now, obviously, nobody is batting 100%. We definitely don't say that we bat 100% over here on this channel. We're going to show you our receipts today. Some of the bad takes, some of the good takes, and everything in between. We'll talk about it. But you know, it wouldn't be an episode of Let's Talk Dynasty without my co-host. So let me bring my guy into the building, MFGDs. How you doing, man?
Yes, sir. We in the building. We might not be 100%, but we might be 99.9%. Yes.
That's crazy. That's crazy to say that. Happy belated birthday, by the way.
Thank you kindly.
If you guys are watching the video, drop a happy birthday in the chat for my guy. But War, we are going to be talking about the receipts. There's some good, there's some bad, there's some ugly, there's some pretty, there's a whole bunch of stuff. What do you want to start with today? Do you want to start with the good? Do you want to start with the bad?
I'm a fan of a good comeback story, so let's start with the bad and then, put the icing on the cake with the good.
Okay, all right. And then with that being said, do you want your bad take first or do you want to go second?
I'll go second, man. I'll go second.
All right, so I found a take of mine. It is from quite a long time ago. Not like a take that was, I would say, let's just not, I'm not going to try and defend it before we play it. Why don't we just play the tape? This is from our NFC South preview. We did, obviously, before the season, we talked about all of these teams and how we felt about the fantasy football assets on these teams. So let's just play the take and we'll go from there. Miles Sanders is a guy that I think at that value, coming off the board as running back 19, you and I have said it multiple times this offseason. He's a value, man. He's a guy.
Zero running back to me.
Yeah, man. There's a world where I think he could be a running back one in fantasy football this year. I really think he could be. It sounds crazy. I think Miles Sanders could be, and he's running back 19, guys. It just feels like the best value pick. I think he is the best value pick at the running back position in fantasy football this year. A guy that I have went and targeted in a bunch of leagues because the cost to get Miles Sanders is low. I think the production will be pretty high for him this year, and he feels safe. If they have to lean on the run game, he's going to get used a lot. And they're talking about using him in the receiving game as well. I think Bryce Young is a highly accurate quarterback. He's going to be able to he's smart. He's quick. He's going to get the ball out quickly. We saw it in the preseason game too. He was taking quick drop backs and then he was hitting a guy. And it wasn't like he was making like otherworldly plays. And keep in mind, it was a pretty modest day for him. But I saw enough that he was dropping back, boom, hits his first read, or boom, sees the first read, doesn't like it, gets to the second read, boom. And it was just quick. He's just a quick decision maker. He's a smart quarterback. And because of that, he's going to be smart to hit the check down when it's there. And I think Miles Sanders is going to be a beneficiary of that. I think a good value pick in fantasy football. Well, that was the bad take from your boy. Let's just talk a little bit about what Miles Sanders did in 2023, because you heard it. I thought he was a great value, low end running back one. You say the perfect zero running back. There's a lot to unfold here. Obviously, this could almost be a double receipt because I went in talking how good Bryce Young was going to be and how good the offensive line for the Carolina Panthers was going to be. None of that was true in 2023. When you look at Miles Sanders' production, 400 rushing yards, 3.4 yards per carry, 27 receptions. That check down that I said was going to happen didn't happen. 150 receiving yards, 1 touchdown on the season, averaged 5.5 fantasy points per game. That was good for running back 54. So the value that I said you were going to be drafting Miles Sanders at, because I can't remember what it just said in that video, something in the 20s, like running back 19, running back 20. You got running back 54 on a points per game basis. Now, the good thing about this is we practice what we preach here, because I had Miles Sanders on a lot of teams. You had Miles Sanders on some teams, probably more so because I was pumping Miles Sanders in your corner and making you a believer. So I didn't go down, telling the viewers to do something that I didn't do. I went down with you. I sunk with that ship. So at the end of the day, horrible take. How do you feel about that receipt now that you've seen it?
He was such a detrimental add to a lot of rosters. He just didn't do it. He just didn't do anything worth of note the entire season. Like I rolled him out there thinking I could have him as the bell cow running back of my fantasy team. And he severely disappointed. Like if there was a tier of disappointment for running backs, him and Austin Eckler are like in the same tier of disappointment.
Probably throw in Alexander Madison as well.
Yeah, throw him in there too. And what makes matters worse is like now he's untradeable. Like nobody's going to give up anything worth of note for Miles Sanders. So
okay, I don't know if I want to go down this rabbit hole again, but if you could throw a 4th round pick out there and get Miles Sanders on your roster, new head coach, new coaching staff, new regime. He did suffer a groin injury in week 4. Could that be part of the reason why he didn't play down the stretch, or is Miles Sanders just trash?
I can't recall. Did they add any running backs during the offseason?
None. Not a single one so far.
I do feel like I would definitely be on the lookout for what they do in the draft as far as running back. Because if I have Miles Sanders, a good way to salvage that situation is probably trying to grab the running back that they draft. That way you kind of, if he does nothing, you got the guy. If he does do something, you got the guy. So that's my logic for it at least.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to double down and tell people to go buy Miles Sanders, but you're right. Like it seems like at this point, he has been absolutely forgotten by the fantasy football community. Like I don't even know where he's at on keep trade cut. Let's just pull it up real quick because I want to see where the community is on Miles Sanders for my own selfish purposes, not necessarily for anything other than that. But right now, running back 63 in rankings. You know who is in a similar tier with Miles Sanders right now?
Dell Robinson.
Israel Abanikanda, Chris Rodriguez. This is the tier.
Boy. That's even worse.
I think that Miles Sanders is more talented than those guys. Now, obviously, he's 27 years old now. Like the running back age cliff could have hit him. That's something that could have happened as well. But again, that is the receipt. I was telling you guys, good value running back, somebody for late rounds that you could try and get RB1 upside. The good news is, and not to brag, I almost put it as a receipt here in today's video for my good receipt, but I didn't want to do 2 running back takes kind of with the same idea. But the logic behind that vision with Miles Sanders was 0 cost, and then you get, low end running back 1, high end running back 2 numbers. There's a couple guys that we talked about last offseason. Another guy that I pumped up during that time period was Rachaad White. So Rachaad White, he did do what I wanted Miles Sanders to do, and he did do that. Yeah. He did accomplish that goal. Hopefully you played Russian roulette between me telling you guys to draft Sanders, telling you to draft White, telling you to draft a couple of these other guys. Hopefully you got more White than you got Miles Sanders. But at the end of the day, man, that's the game we play. When you're taking shots on these running backs really late in drafts, you want opportunity. I would use the same process again on a similar running back this offseason. If somebody falls into that situation where it looks like there's very minimal competition, I would do the same process. I would go through the same things. Obviously, you're playing a game where there's other variables we can't control, but I still like the process. Obviously, it's a miss. It's a fun receipt. And that's when you look back on it and say, man, I wish I didn't draft Miles Sanders.
Yeah, it's definitely one we'd like to take back.
Fair enough. All right, well, let's look at your receipt here. I'll pull it up. Okay, and so your receipt is from actually that same episode, I think. It was the NFC South, NFC North preview, and we were going to talk about the Houston Texans, actually. And you had some words about how you believe the Texans were going to perform this year. And there's a double receipt in this one as well, because you said after seeing a certain quarterback play, a rookie quarterback play, you doubled down saying that they weren't going to be very good. Let's look at this Houston Texans take. Our show today here with the Houston Texans. Right now, they're projected 6.5 wins war. They are coming off of a season last year where they went 3-13-1. New head coach in the building this year for, the second year in a row now? Or maybe even the third year in a row now. And new quarterback in the building, CJ Stroud. So I want to ask you, War, how do you feel about this 6.5 win total? Is it accurate? Is it too high? Is it too low? Where are we at with the Houston Texans?
I think it's too. After seeing CJ Stroud, I have determined that the win total of 6.5 is too high. I never believed in the Texans doing anything of note. I think their whole operation they're running over there is a little bit odd. Even though I like their coach, just the circumstances of how he was hired, that was a little bit odd to me. Yeah, man, that's too high. I don't see it. It's weird. Like the Texans have little, they have players here and there that I like individually. Like Nico Collins. I like Nico Collins. I wouldn't mind him being on my team. I like Dameon Pierce. I mean, I drafted him in one of our leagues and then he blew up after I traded him. But they have a couple guys I like over there. But as a team, as a whole, I just don't like the nucleus of that team. And I don't think in real life or fantasy for that part. And yeah, 6.5, like I'm surprised they even put that win total that high. I think 4.5 or 3.5 would have been more apropos.
Okay, so there's a few receipts in that one, so let's unpack it. Obviously, you said after seeing a quarterback play, and this was, if I'm remembering back in the timeline correctly, CJ Stroud had like a pretty bad first preseason game, right? Like I want to say he got sacked quite a bit. He threw a couple interceptions in his first preseason game, and this is just off of memory. Don't fact check that, but I remember that being the sentiment and the feeling was people were like, "Oh no, the Houston Texans messed up on CJ Stroud," and I think that that's what you were referring to when you said after seeing him play, I don't think that this team's going to win that or they're not going to pass that win total. You said 3.5 wins would have been a better line to set them at. They won 10 games. They won the AFC South. CJ Stroud wins the Rookie of the Year. Best quarterback of a rookie or best rookie quarterback season of all time.
Yeah.
That's the big receipts there. Walk me through this. Talk me through this.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I was wrong. I've said a few things in that video. I said I don't like the nucleus of this team. I take that back. I love the nucleus of this team. Nico, funny enough, Nico Collins, despite his good season, I'm not trying to create another receipt here. Despite his good season, the addition of Stefon Diggs does make me question how we'll see Nico Collins, but we've talked about this before, the whole who does it affect more, Nico or Tank. So, I mean, we'll see how that turns out. Then I said in the video that I was hyping up Dameon Pierce. Big mistake. I'd rather, I'd rather play Paul Pierce at running back at this point than Dameon Pierce. And then obviously the big one is my doubt of CJ Stroud. I couldn't be more wrong. I was more wrong, in my personal opinion, I was more wrong about this than I was about Jordan Love, which is our last receipts video. Go check that out. I was wrong, man, and I was wrong about the Texans. I think everyone could agree, as an NFL fan community as a whole, none of us really thought the Texans were going to do that. I think I could confidently say that. None of us thought they could do that. They shattered what I thought, which was 3.5 wins. They pretty much shattered 6.5 wins. And CJ Stroud is a bona fide stud, so much so that I traded a massive haul for him this offseason in one of the leagues. So, yeah, man, I was definitely wrong here. Definitely wrong.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And I honestly, going into the preseason, I would say most, if not all of the viewers' favorite fantasy football content creators, fantasy football analysts, whatever you want to call them at this point, like, I don't think that CJ Stroud was really anybody's number one quarterback in the class. I would say a majority of people going in, ourselves included, had some order of Anthony Richardson and Bryce Young, or Bryce Young and Anthony Richardson. And most of the time, especially in all of the rookie drafts, you were going to be getting CJ Stroud as QB3 off the board in those rookie drafts. And so I think a lot of people didn't necessarily believe that CJ Stroud was going to be a baller at the next level. Yes, there's going to be some people in your leagues and some people that you're friends with, and maybe some people watching this that are like, well, CJ Stroud was my number one quarterback and I drafted him at the 107. Sure, buddy. I'm sure if you could have had a chance to draft Anthony Richardson, you would have took Anthony Richardson over CJ Stroud. But the reality is that not a lot of people saw this coming from the Houston Texans, saw this coming from CJ Stroud. And at the end of the day, this team is legit. They look like real life Super Bowl contenders going into the 2024 season. The defense is really good. Obviously, the Stefon Diggs trade, everything that they have on offense, Joe Mixon going to there to play as the running back. Like, this team's going to make a run at a Super Bowl. They're probably going to win the AFC South again. I can't imagine the Jaguars or the Colts or the Titans have a chance to beat them this year unless there's a major injury to a guy like CJ Stroud in this offense. Hopefully that doesn't happen. Knock on wood. We never want to see injuries to those guys. But the reality is they're legit. CJ Stroud is legit. 3.5 was crazy. That was a crazy line for you to set.
Yeah.
But it is what it is, man. Let's move on to the good receipts because we've talked about the bad. Like we said, too bad, too good. Let's show that we're not always wrong. You say 99%. I'll go a little bit less than that. Nobody's going to be 100%. Let's pull up one of the good receipts. The first one that we're going to look at here is actually going to be from, this is the oldest receipt actually. This is going to be from a video that I made a long time ago in the off season of 2023. So like months before we even got into preseason, anything like that. I talked about 3 deep sleepers that you should be targeting in startup drafts that I thought could outperform the ADPs. In this take, I talk about a specific player who definitely outperformed the ADP. Let's watch the take. Second sleeper, I want to talk about Trey McBride. And Trey McBride, he's a tight end for the Arizona Cardinals, 23 and a half years old. You know, he's coming off the board. Same thing. It's 123 players off the board. These guys are coming off late. I say deep sleepers. These guys are guys you can get really deep in your drafts. And that's good for tight end 17. And one thing to consider with Trey McBride is that last year in his draft class, most evaluators evaluated Trey McBride as the best tight end in the class. Now, Trey McBride obviously goes to the Arizona Cardinals. Zach Ertz is there. He kind of plays behind Zach Ertz most of the year. And then there was a couple games on the year where Trey McBride was fantasy relevant because Zach Ertz tears his ACL. Now, you got to consider the fact that the Arizona Cardinals, I think, are going to be moving on from DeAndre Hopkins this offseason. So they're going to move on from DeAndre Hopkins. That's going to open up vacated targets for Trey McBride, Rondell Moore, Hollywood Brown, all of these guys that are already there, right? So you're going to open up a vacated amount of targets. You got to consider that Zach Ertz is in his 30s coming off of an ACL tear. There may not be a ton left in the tank for Zach Ertz, which I think Trey McBride was kind of drafted to be the guy to replace Zach Ertz long term. So to me, I think Trey McBride is going to have the opportunity this year. It may not be right away, but he'll have the opportunity this year to step into the starting role. As you get later into the year, obviously Kyler Murray will be back in the lineup and the offense will be a little bit better once he gets into the lineup. So I do think that Trey McBride, man, I think he has the opportunity to be possibly the second best receiving option in the lineup if he does start over Zach Ertz. I think it'd be Hollywood Brown and then Trey McBride at that point. So I want to target guys who have athletic profiles. They're young. You got to consider that tight ends take a while to develop and kind of break out for fantasy football. So this is going to be year 2 for McBride. He is a deep sleeper that you could be adding. And as the tight end position continues, we continue to talk about it all the time. The tight end position is not a very good position after you get past like the top 5 to 6 guys. So after that, you're shooting upside. And I think Trey McBride has a ton of upside that you should be shooting for in your dynasty fantasy football leagues. All right, man. So that take obviously aged pretty well. Trey McBride, when you look at the season that he had, 106 targets, 81 receptions, 825 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns. He had 10.7 fantasy points per game, which was good for number 8. But I think the bigger thing was in the take, I mentioned that it may take a little while for Trey McBride to get rolling. And then in the second half of the season, obviously, Trey McBride took off. He had multiple top 3 finishes at the tight end positions. I think there was like 4 top 3 finishes and then multiple top 12 finishes as well. He balled out. And the reality is you were drafting him, like I said, in that take at the 123rd player off the board. We talked about the tight end position being horrible. You and I have actually talked about the tight end position needing a little bit of a renaissance. We saw a renaissance coming for the tight end position, a big change in the landscape. Well, Trey McBride currently ranked as tight end 3 in Dynasty Fantasy Football rankings right now on Keep Trade Cut. It is Sam Laporta, Brock Bowers, Trey McBride, Dalton Kincaid is the top 4. None of those guys would have been in the top 4 going into the last year. So the renaissance is definitely upon us. Trey McBride, a big winner from last year's season. And I think most people are going to be drafting him within the top 5 tight ends in your startup drafts this offseason as well. So if you bought in, you drafted Trey McBride, obviously that paid off massively for your Dynasty Fantasy Football teams, a huge influx in value. And even if you don't believe in Trey McBride long-term, you can sell him for 10 times what you paid to draft him just a year ago when we were talking about this take.
Yeah, man, I feel like you nailed that one, Trey McBride. Like, honestly, I kind of poo-pooed it when you were saying it at the time. I was like, Trey McBride, whatever. But no, man, that dude turned out to be a stud. He's been overvalued now. I do believe that. I do believe he's being overvalued now, but that doesn't mean that he's not a stud. You know what I mean? It just means that people are kind of putting him a little bit too high. But yeah, man, I think you did an excellent job right there with that one. That was definitely a good receipt.
Yeah, and like you said on your last one, not trying to make another receipt here, but a guy who I think fits the same the same mold, the same thought process this year as I had with Trey McBride last year is Michael Mayer of the Las Vegas Raiders. I feel like Michael Mayer fits that exact same thought process. A guy who was drafted highly in the NFL draft. He goes to the Las Vegas Raiders. He didn't necessarily play a lot right away. When he started working himself into the lineup, he looked a little bit better. Now, obviously, it wasn't anything that wowed you. You can still get Michael Mayer pretty late in startup drafts this year. I don't know necessarily where he is going compared to the rest of the landscape. Let's actually pull that up right now. But right now on Keep Trade Cut, Michael Mayer is the 130th player off the board. So I said Trey McBride was 123. You can get Michael Mayer just a little bit later, pretty much in the same exact range. I think he fits the mold. If you like that thought process, if you believe in that thought process, obviously we're not going to be shooting 100%. There's a very good chance that you could make that bet on Michael Mayer this offseason and it not pan out. I think there was a time last year where I also really liked Greg Dulcich. That didn't pan out either. But you take those shots at tight end, we know that getting that difference-making tight end, getting a cheap tight end that becomes a consistent starter, it is a franchise-changing type of move for your dynasty rosters, because when you can plug in a tight end every week and not have to worry about who you're streaming and not have to worry about who you're playing, it makes the game so much easier, because then you can focus on the flexes, you can focus on the other wide receiver spot, you can focus on the other things. Having that tight end is a difference maker. I think Michael Mayer fits the same bill as we had with this Trey McBride take, but obviously that Trey McBride aged well. We'll see what happens with Michael Mayer this year.
Yeah, man. I think a lot of people forget about Michael Mayer because of the emergence of Dalton Kincaid and some of the other tight ends in the class. I think he kind of slipped into the background. But if the Raiders get Gardner Minshew even, or even Aiden O'Connell developing, or them picking up someone like, I know how you feel about Michael Penix, yeah, something like that, I think, we could see a little bit of an upswing for Michael Mayer.
For sure. Yeah, well, let's move on to the next take. Your good take. It's only, I'll be honest, I feel like this one wasn't the biggest of reach for a good take, because you're tapped into this guy like nobody's business. So let's talk about your take here. So the take here is going to be about Justin Fields. And if anybody has been watching Let's Talk Dynasty from the dawn of the beginning of time, they know that War is a Bears fan. They know that he has been a Justin Fields truther, apologist, everything in between, all the way up to this point. And he still will defend Justin Fields, even though he is not a Chicago Bear. But that's going to take us to this take. Let's watch this take here and let's talk about it. Jake, and you were walking around in this saloon and you ran into one of these guys too. And I was surprised that you ran into one of your friends here, because you ran into Justin Fields, quarterback of the Chicago Bears, and he's coming off the board as QB6 in underdog draft. So tell me why Justin Fields is hanging out at the Last Chance Saloon.
Well, I seen him sitting at the end of the bar, and I walked up to him. I said, Justin, what the hell are you doing here? You were about to break Michael Vick's record last season. And then Justin turned around to me and he said, MFGDs, it's as simple as I need to become a better passer. And I looked at him and I said, why? Fantasy-wise, you're putting up amazing numbers. And he said, I know, no doubt. But needless to say, fantasy and real life are two different things. And I'm afraid that if I don't perform well, you may have to have a new friend in the Windy City. And I said, all right, it's simple as this. And I'm going to put this pretty bluntly. If Justin Fields fails, okay, first let me put the context around it. Let's say, for instance, by some chance, the Bears only improve 2 games and they get 5 wins instead of 3. That'll be enough for Justin Fields to lose his job in Chicago. Sure. He'll get another chance on another team. But will that translate? We know the real life and fantasy are two different things. These teams don't care about what a player does in fantasy. So Justin can have all the upside in the world to us. But in real life, if he loses his job and they determine that he's a shitty passer and he can't get any better in that direction, then he'll be just one of those guys that they try to turn into something else. I mean, that's the way I look at it. I think Chicago will be his, I won't say only chance, because he'll get signed by somebody else, but it's his best chance to become that star that we know he could become in fantasy football. Yeah, he put up numbers last season, but imagine if Justin was even slightly above average in passing. We're talking about what, Andrew? What do you think? Well, we're talking about he was number 7 as is. We're talking about what, like top 4 fantasy quarterback if he's an above average passer with the rushing upside.
Yep.
And that's why I said he'll never have, once the stink of this team replaced you with another quarterback gets on Justin, in real life, it'll tarnish him going forward. He'll be a reclamation project for another team. He'll put up some good numbers running, and pretty much simple as this. Justin needs to show what he showed Ohio State this season. His last chance to do it.
You said it had to happen that way. And just looking at how the season went for Justin Fields and the Bears, you said 5 wins. You guys got 7 wins. So actually did a little bit better than you thought that they could possibly do. I think the reality of the situation is, and what we all kind of had in the back of our minds was that you guys had multiple first round picks in this year's class, and you had the ability to go get a quarterback last year. You didn't. You rolled with Justin Fields. If you get the chance again, and he didn't get you over that finish line, or at least push you towards a contention for playoffs, wasn't going to happen. And you guys came in last place in the division last year again, and Justin Fields was on his way out. So talk to me a little bit about that take. I will give you one more piece of context here, because at the time that you made that statement, Justin Fields was being viewed as a QB1 in Dynasty Fantasy Football. People had him in their top 10. And now, today, it's QB 26.
Very unfortunate. Very, very unfortunate that my take had to be right. I think there's a lot of factors that went into it. That was done last June. At that time, we had no clue the Bears would get the number 1 overall pick. And I was writing a video. Justin Fields, he told me in the bar, if I don't learn to be a better passer, you're gonna have a new friend in Chicago. My new friend is Caleb Williams. It was a prophecy that was unfortunately fulfilled. I do want to walk back a couple of the things I said in the video. I think that he does have. Now that I see he went to the Steelers, I do think he has a better chance of getting a second shot of being the star. I said Chicago will be his last chance. The only 2 people in the NFL who fix that is Andy Reid and Mike Tomlin. So he got with Mike Tomlin, so I think he does have another shot. But yeah, unfortunately, everything I said came to pass. He didn't become a better passer. People don't talk about this. He even regressed in the running department. He regressed in that department. Like, he wasn't doing what he was doing the season before. So now we're talking about how he was a lesser real life asset and a lesser fantasy asset. And that's why he got traded. That combined with the Bears having an opportunity to draft a guy that they're putting in the same breath as Andrew Luck, Patrick Mahomes, and Trevor Lawrence, and guys like that, it's a no-brainer that they had to move Justin. Unfortunate to say, it's unfortunate for sure, but it had to happen.
Yeah, Chicago will be better off in the long run. And I love Justin Fields, but they'll be better off in the long run with a guy like Caleb Williams. You talked about the production taking a step back. Fantasy points per game wise, it was less than what he did in 2022. Nothing crazy. In 2022, he averaged 20.5 fantasy points per game. That was top 5 in the NFL. In 2023, he averaged 18.4. So that was number 9 in the NFL. I think the unfortunate part, as well as some of the other stuff, is that Justin Fields, he missed some time due to some injury this year as well, which was, I think, also kind of a eye-opener with all the running. As much as you run, you're going to get hurt eventually. And you said that rushing took a step back. It definitely did. He went for 1,100 yards in 2022, 650 yards in 2023. The rushing touchdowns were cut in half. The passing touchdowns were actually pretty much the exact same, 17 to 16 in 2023. He played in 2 less games, but he just didn't take a step forward passing. The yardage, the completion percentage, the yards per attempt, the passing touchdowns, all of it was almost exactly the same. And the only thing that went up was the attempts in less games. So he was passing more, but he was giving you the same numbers. I think you're right. He was sitting in that last chance saloon, because that's the episode that it came from. He was sitting in that last chance saloon and told you, hey, I got to become a better passer. Otherwise, they're going to kick me out of town. And you didn't. You didn't become a better passer. So they did kick you out of town. And Justin wasn't lying to us. You didn't lie to us. I think that's a good receipt.
Sorry, Justin, man. I just had to. Caleb's my friend now.
I got a new friend now, buddy. See you next time, buddy. On Wednesday, we wear pink. But that is our fantasy receipts episode. If you guys enjoyed this type of episode, we can do more of these types of episodes. Obviously, we spread them out quite a bit because we need some time for some of these takes that we make every day to age a little bit, either good or poorly. So we can do another one here soon. And if you guys want the fantasy receipts episodes to be longer, maybe an hour-long live stream where we do multiple bad takes and multiple good takes, or maybe you just want it all bad takes, you don't want to see the good stuff, let us know in the comments down below. We're open to changing the format. Like I said, something that I think is unique to the fantasy YouTube space. Not a lot of people do it. Definitely fun for us to go back and look at some of the stuff that we talked about, especially some of the stuff we're wrong, some of the stuff we're right about. I like doing it. So with that being said, if you guys enjoyed the video, hit the like button. Also, make sure you guys are subscribed to this channel. Hit the notification bell as well. That way you never miss any future uploads. I will say we got our final top 36 rookie rankings coming out to the channel on Wednesday, the night before the NFL draft starts. And then obviously we will be doing lots of NFL draft content and things like that in the future. Next Sunday for our Dynasty, Let's Talk Dynasty podcast show, we are going to be doing a live rookie mock draft mayhem. So we need some of you guys to go join the Discord in the description. It is a free Discord linked down below. We're going to be doing some rookie mocks with some people from the Discord, probably 2 or 3 rookie mocks on stream with the people right after the NFL draft is concluded. So we can kind of start getting an idea of how these are going to go for us, because I know that your rookie drafts are going to be coming up very quickly after the NFL draft concludes. I know ours, they start on Monday right after. So we'll be getting ready. Hopefully you guys will be getting ready with us too. But with all those things being said, War, you're making content as well. Where can they find your content?
You can find my content on the YouTube channel, The Crimson Mask Show, where we cover professional wrestling, WWE, AEW, and we do that every week. So please check us out. We are growing. Help us get to 1,000 subscribers.
Yep. So if you guys like fantasy football and you like wrestling, it's the best of both worlds over there, the Crimson Mask. Follow MFGDs. You guys know where to get all your good stuff from. So anyways, with that being said, guys, we'll see you on our next episode. Until then, peace out.